September the 19th, 2023 Board of Aldermen meeting is hereby called to order. As a reminder, this meeting will be live streamed and recorded on the city's YouTube channel. I ask this time Alderwoman Hamilton if you will lead our prayer that will be followed by me leading the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Please pray with me. Dear Father in heaven, we thank you for your many blessings to us, dear Lord. We thank you for blessing us with another beautiful day. And we especially, Lord, thank you for giving us this great city that is a great place for us to live and to work and to worship and to play and to raise our families, dear God. Lord, we ask you to bless this meeting tonight. We ask you, Father, especially to guide our mayor as he leads this meeting. And dear Father, as we listen to the word spoken, we pray that each word will be to honor and glory to you and give us a peace about the decisions we make. This we ask in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Be seated. Madam Clerk, would you conduct roll call?
Aldridge. Here. Collins.
Here.
Dickerson.
Here.
Earhart.
Here.
Hamilton.
Here.
Henderson. Here. Wallace.
Here. Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Everyone present 100%, so obviously a quorum is established. Board, you've had, through the weekend, you've had the minutes of our regular meeting on September the 5th, 2023. Any questions about the minutes from that meeting? And if no questions, any motions to approve the minutes as presented?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Alderman at Large Collins, motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Alderwoman Hamilton. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Following the agenda, Mayor's update for the board is relatively short. This time we had a lot of updates the last occasion, but you do have a handout in front of you. From a human resources standpoint, open enrollment for our group insurance, group health, dental and optical has been completed. Great work by the HR department completing those. So all employees have re-entered or made their selections. Our E911 dispatchers, Angie Carroll and Jody Grimes, have completed all the requirements, and they have obtained their Mississippi BETST state certifications to serve as a dispatcher in this state. From a Parks and Recreation standpoint, Bucket in the Branch Rodeo was held last Saturday evening. It was a success. Approximately 1,500 attendees were present. From an administration standpoint, I'm pleased to say that thanks to some of the help on the board, Alderman Wallace and others, and other members throughout the state, that I have been appointed to serve on the Mississippi Municipal League Board of Directors. So look forward to doing that, and hopefully work some things that will help all the cities throughout the state. And also we have closed on our animal shelter land to build our new animal shelter. That land is in our possession now. It's at Legacy Park. It is on Polk Lane, south of Highway 302, and we are now entering the design phase to get design work done for the new animal shelter. You have some stats in front of you, fire incident types from the fire department, calls that they made over the last month, and also you have EMS calls, rescue calls, hazardous service calls, just to show you the type of things going on from the fire department side. And also you have before you, on the last page of the handout, different items that were held from the fire department dealing with our community, fire safety education, training, etc., tornado siren project that's taking place, career day at schools, just to show the involvement from fire services. So hats off to them for their roles there. Any questions on the mayor updates? Hearing none, following the agenda. The consent agenda you have before you. Any questions on those items? Items 1 through 25. Any questions on items 1 through 25 on the consent agenda? If no questions, any motions to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So move. Second.
Mr. Earhart, motion to approve, second by Mr. Wallace. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries to present as is. Next item on the agenda is Planning Commission This is a public hearing date for an application to amend the project text and associated development plan for Mitchell's Corner Planned Development Area 1 to permit gas pumps as accessory use to allowed convenience stores, submitted by Houston Engineering on behalf of 305 College Incorporated property owner. The 4.42 plus or minus acres subject property, which is Zone C4 Planned Commercial District, is located on the southwest corner of the intersection of College Road and Highway 305. Public hearing was set for this date on August the 15th, and we'll put the process flow up on the screen. Process flow, the bullet items I sent this afternoon, so that everybody will know how this flows and how this rolls out. Thank you for your attendance tonight. I know we've got people on both sides that want to give information to the board before they make their decision. Just to show you how this works, so to make sure there's an understanding, the staff report made by the city staff will be made to the Board of Aldermen at first. The Board of Aldermen will then ask the staff any questions they have about the report. The second part of the process, the applicant or the applicant's representative, i.e. an engineer or an attorney, will provide additional details if there are any additional details to be shared. The Board of Aldermen will then ask the applicant questions as they need to about the application. From there, we'll go to public comments are allowed for up to 3 minutes maximum. Questions are not allowed, comments are allowed, professional decorum must be maintained. We'll have a device over to my right at the clerk's desk that will give a warning at a notification at a green light, a warning at a yellow light, and a stop at a red light, which means your 3 minutes are up and it's time for the next person to provide their comments after that. Once public comments are completed for the application and against the application, then the applicant's allowed to respond to any issues raised by public comments. After that, the board will ask questions of the applicant and the applicant's representative or staff if they have any questions. And at the final part, the board will decide whether to make a motion on the application or to let it die without a vote. Is the board ready for the staff report?
Procedural matter.
Please,
On your screen and on the diagram, on the screen for the board of members and on the large screens for the audience, you see a map of the subject property. A petition was submitted in opposition to this project by certain property owners in the vicinity of the subject property. The portions of the property that are owned by the petitioners are highlighted in blue on the map that's shown on the screen. State law says that a petition submitted by the owners of 20% of the property adjacent to any one side and within 160 feet of that side of the subject property force what the law calls a supermajority, which means that a motion to pass the application would require the votes of 5 board members rather than 4, which would constitute a simple majority. Staff has reviewed the ownership records for the owners or the signatories to the petition, and it appears to staff, and it's my recommendation, that the board accept the petition as sufficient to force a supermajority voting standard to be in effect for tonight. Mayor, if the board agrees, that requires motion, second, and vote to recognize the petition as sufficient to force a supermajority. I will note that just along the south area, the south property line alone, based on the way the law works with a multi-sided piece of property, clearly the 2 owners that signed in those 2 addresses, they own 100% of the property within 160 feet of any one side of the subject property. Therefore, those 2 property owners alone would be sufficient to have the supermajority voting standard in effect. So it's my recommendation that the board have a motion, second, and vote to recommend the supermajority as applicable to tonight's proceeding.
Thank you, Mr. Dye. Board, is there a motion to grant this supermajority?
Motion.
Mr. Wallace, motion to grant supermajority. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Collins. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. So under this scenario, the motion to approve the application would require 5 of 7 favorable votes. 5 of 7 favorable votes. The motion to deny the application would be a simple majority, 4 out of 7 noes.
That's correct.
And I anticipate a roll call vote with this particular item, so we'll know the total count. Any questions from the board on the supermajority? Ready for the staff report, please.
Mayor Alderman, before you is a request to consider a project text amendment for Mitchell's Corner Area 1A. The main reason being to permit gas pumps as accessory use on this piece of property. The use of the term accessory is intentional in the sense that the property already permits convenience stores. So the building itself, with the articles for sale inside that store, constitute the principal use. The gas pumps are essentially accessory to that principal use which is already permitted on site. This application has gone through a number of hearings, and in this presentation, I will essentially touch on 4 main points or 4 main areas. I'll provide a background context to this application, provide an analysis in light of the project text amendment criteria as stipulated in the zoning ordinance. The zoning ordinance has very specific criteria for determining whether a project text amendment should be approved or not. So there are specific conditions provided in the zoning ordinance. I will also provide an impact comparison of the current and the proposed provisions. The current provisions being what the project text as was approved by the county provides, and what the current applicant is proposing. So I will compare the two basically and the impact from those two relative to this specific application. Finally, I will provide the recommendation of the Planning Commission following their meeting on August 8th. Next slide, please. Before you is the location of the subject property. It is located at the intersection of, as you see there in red, it's located at the intersection of College Road running east-westward and Highway 305 running north-southward. It is not exactly at that intersection. It's a piece of property, that triangular piece of property in between, which has a gas station. The property is located here in red. This area marked, this line in yellow, that is the current city limits. So the property is inside the city limits, but the adjoining road, so Highway 305 adjoining this property, is actually outside of the city limits. In terms of background context, the county approved the project text and the preliminary development plan for this particular piece of property back in 2005. Per the approval and the language in the project text, the county specified that this site would be permitted to be subdivided into 2 lots, basically as shown on this project text. The county also required that there would be a 30-feet wide landscape, natural landscape buffer on the east and the west and the south side of the property. And there would be a 20-feet wide buffer with trees on the north and on the west side of the property adjoining the highway. The county also included, as approved in this preliminary development plan, which creates certain entitlements on the property. The county also included 2 driveways, permitted that there would be 2 driveways on this particular site, 1 for each lot. Those are essentially what the plan layout called for. Across the street is a site that has been developed for Dollar General. As you would see, that piece of property has basically been divided into 2 lots, following the layout that you have in Area 2. So Dollar General is currently on 1 lot, It's very possible that in future, the rest of that property is going to be developed again for more intensive commercial purposes, as you see, shown on this slide, following what the county approved. If you stay with it, those are the entitlements of this particular piece of property. This rezoning, this happened, as I did mention, in 2005 when the county rezoned the property from agricultural residential AR to C4 planned commercial. So this planned commercial zoning is the current zoning of that piece of property. In 2021, the city annexed this property with this C4 zoning district. We inherited that zone, we inherited the project text, and the project text, the preliminary development plan, they all remain enforceable, they are all applicable until such time that the Board of Aldermen decides to amend it, as you may do tonight if you choose to do so. A number of uses were included in the project text that was submitted to the county and was approved. If you go on the city's website today, there is in your packet, it's a matter of ethics, I had to include that in your packet. The applicant made a submission in terms of what transpired when he was acquiring this piece of property, and did mention, to kind of take a long story short, if you go on the city's website, this is the list, and you click on the property just as anyone would follow to know what the particular zoning of piece of property is, and the list of uses that are permitted on that particular piece. On the city's website, this is what you will find there. So this is DeSoto County. This is the zoning map of the city. If you click on it, it will come up to this page, which shows you the different uses that are permitted on that piece of property. This was uploaded by the county, not by the city. All of this was done by the county before they transferred the property over to us, and it remains there on the city's website. Number 8 on it states that the following uses shall be permitted: convenience store with or without gas pumps. So that basically means the site permits gas pumps. The applicant, when he subsequently called me and wanted to submit site plans, I went in and I did a just preliminary review. Went on the city's website, I looked at this list, and from experience, purely from experience, if I were an entry-level planner, I would not have known. There is no way I would have known. Just from experience, something was off. The wearing, I didn't find the bulk regulations that normally would go with a C4 property. So I started reading down through the minutes to see whether this was actually even zone C4 or not. And it was in the course of reading in the minutes of the Board of Supervisors meeting that I found that the Board of Supervisors, in approving the project text, had eliminated or prohibited gas pumps. So that is hidden in the minutes. And it will be understandable that an entry-level planner will not. We just don't find uses by going into minutes of meeting. They are usually disclosed in the zoning code itself. In October 2022, after the city had annexed this piece of property, the applicant submitted an application following that discussion I had with him, saying, no, this property does not permit gas pumps based on the Board of Supervisors' decision. If you want to have gas pumps there, you have to amend the project text and go through this process. So the applicant submitted a project text amendment request back in 2022. That went before the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission recommended denial based on 2 reasons. One, that the future land use map at the time designated the property as suburban residential. And secondly, the Planning Commission raised safety concerns based on the traffic study that was submitted to the Planning Commission. That traffic study did not evidently consider growth. It did not do site distance measurements because of the change in grades that you have out there. It did not consider that. And it did not consider any lane additions on Highway 305 within the frontage of the property. If you look at Dollar General across the street, for example, it has got a deceleration lane entering into the site. So the project text as submitted in that particular application was really, the traffic study was not done to the standard that one will expect. That is the reason the Planning Commission denied the application. The applicant decided to move forward with it, but it was brought before you, but before you actually, the Board of Aldermen actually did schedule the public hearing, but before the date of the public hearing, the applicant withdrew the application. So that is the reason you didn't get to make any decision on this in 2022. On November 4th of that year, the applicant submitted, having withdrawn the application, he went ahead and submitted a new application. First, it was a concept, and I will touch on that concept in the course down the line. But to just mention briefly, when he withdrew the application, he called me, he asked what were the uses that are permitted on the site. He wanted to be clear about that. I did tell him there was a for sale sign on that piece of property. That sign, he really didn't intend to sell the entire piece of property. Based on the setup that the county had where you could subdivide it into 2 lots, he wanted to sell one of the lots and then develop the other lot himself. So we would have ended up, if that had gone through, we would have ended up with 2 commercial businesses on that particular piece of property. He had an offer on it. That is more of a private thing at his level. When that concept was brought in and suggested to me, and I looked at the impact of what it would create, I re-engaged the developer on the possibility of something that would have less impact compared to what he was proposing, which he was permitted to do by right, following the project text approved by the county. But the traffic impact alone would have tripled. The application before you is not a request to change the zoning of this property from the current C4 to any other zoning district. The property is remaining C4. The application is not also a request to permit a convenience store because, as I did mention, convenience stores are already permitted on this site as a use by right. So it's not to permit a convenience store. It is not, strictly speaking, to permit a convenience store with gas pumps, which is convenience store and gas pumps, so to speak. Because anything dealing with convenience store and the impact that may create is already permitted on that property by right. If he came in today and wanted to develop a convenience store without gas pumps, this process will not take place. There will be no hearing at the Planning Commission, no hearing before the Board of Aldermen. He will just simply submit a site plan. If it meets the specifications of the project text as approved by the county, staff would administratively approve it, and he will proceed with grading the site and constructing and proceeding with construction. So this application is really not about a convenience store. The request is only to allow gas pumps. It's just only about gas pumps as an accessory use to the already permitted convenience store. As I did mention, the new application was submitted on November 4th. On November 15th, the Board of Aldermen adopted the regulations which require that gas stations be at signalized intersection. City's ordinance, that particular ordinance, takes effect 1 month after adoption. In this regard, that ordinance took effect on December 15, 2022. I remember at that particular meeting, I should say, the mayor did not know about this application. He had no idea. I knew that the application had come in. We usually don't receive applications and then proceed to go and brief the mayor immediately. That's not the administrative procedure. We work on it, take it to the Planning Commission, and then send the report to him after that. So at that particular November 15 meeting, he had no idea that an application had been submitted on November 4th. In this regard, this application predates the regulation that was adopted on December 15. And secondly, those regulations themselves specify that when it comes to planned developments, whether C4 or PUDs, the Board of Aldermen has discretion on where it wants to permit them. So the Board of Aldermen has the discretion to permit them even where the intersection is not signalized. In all other districts, it has to be signalized. But when it comes to plant development, because the project text comes before the Board of Aldermen for review, the Board of Aldermen, in reviewing the project text, makes the determination whether it wants to permit a gas station there or not. With respect to changes that the applicant made from the previous submission that was considered by the Planning Commission and recommended for denial, and the application that you have in front of you today, what are some of these changes? The initial application had a building size proposal of 6,720 square feet. The applicant reduced that by 720 square feet in this particular application. As you will see in the Planning Commission's recommendation, the Planning Commission further recommended that the building size be reduced to 4,500 square feet. So if these were approved with that condition, then it would be for a 4,500 square foot building. What that does in terms of impact is that it reduces the intensity and any traffic impact that may occasion from the development. If a convenience store without gas pumps today were built on the property, there is no limit on how much square feet he can have. Insofar as he can provide parking, including the reduction parking allowance that were built into that code, or the project text as approved by the county, he can put even a 10,000 square foot building on that piece of property. There is no limit. The number of gas pump bays, concept-wise, at the pre-development meeting, they initially had 8 pumps. At the Planning Commission, he reduced them to 6 pumps, and the application to 8 stations. So at the Planning Commission, those were reduced to 6 stations, and the application in front of you is 4 stations. So from the time of concept plan presented to staff in 2022 to today, the number of pump stations have reduced by half. In terms of buffering, there is no requirement for a composite fence in the project text that was approved by the county. There's no requirement. If you were to approve this application, the current application in front of you includes a 30-feet wide evergreen buffer in addition to the natural trees area and a 6-feet high composite fence with brick columns every 50 feet. The Planning Commission actually recommended that that fence height be increased from 6 feet to 8 feet. That increases protection for the surrounding and property values. The current project text doesn't have that. Highway 305 lane improvements. The text as submitted in 2022 had no right turn lane into the side. The current application provides for the turn lanes, so you have increased storage length of the right turn deceleration lane into the side, and there is also added a right turn acceleration lane out of the site. Secondly, the applicant has been required by MDOT to overlay the asphalt in the entire street frontage of that property. I will explain that when I'm talking about traffic issues. The impact of that will be an increase in traffic safety. Highway 305 speed limit. Previous application had no change in the speed limit. Under the current application, the applicant, when he redid the traffic study, he submitted it to MDOT. MDOT reviewed the traffic study back and forth for about the past 6 months, and MDOT will be coming back to reduce the speed limit, required that the applicant reduce the speed limit. That would be the northbound speed limit from 50 miles per hour to 45 miles per hour. On that side, the speed limit going north and south are not consistent. They are not consistent. Andy can touch on that. In terms of building design, the previous application basically had a highway commercial gas station design, like what you see on Goodman Road, where you have a separate canopy with the lights all over it on the side, and you have a separate building standing at the back. Basically, all the gas stations you've got in this city are like that. That is what the previous design had. The current design, as you will see, it's in terms of scale, in terms of architecture, in terms of signage, and the site functionality have all been redesigned to feed into the residential character of the neighborhood in an effort to de-emphasize the gas pumps areas. Those are design elements that are not currently required in the project text that we inherited from the county. They are not. So this is what I'm talking about. At the top, that is the design that you had in the very first submission in 2022. The current design totally takes away that highway gas station view with lights all over the canopy, set aside the building looking like Dollar General across the street, or even otherwise, because really in the project text from the county, there are no specific requirements that it has to be 100% brick, for example. The current design is more compatible, as you see on this side, with the residential character of the neighborhood. So that is a change that the applicant has made. The previous application also did not consider population growth, which is one of the reasons the Planning Commission denied the application. The current application, following all the analysis, it considered population growth in DeSoto County, in Marshall County, and in the city of Olive Branch, including I did provide to them data on all the subdivisions that we have approved in that area, such as Highland Lake, Old River Farm, and then you also have Emory, I think it's called Emory Lake in the county, on the east side of College Road. There's also the orchards to the south of this particular site. Got some more data from the county and provided to the applicant in the traffic study. All of that was used, and the average growth rate stood at 4.7%, historical growth rate, plus the traffic, the rate at which traffic has been changing on that road as measured by MDOT for about the past 20 years. The average growth rate stood at 4.7%. In this study, the applicant used a 5% growth rate. So he just went ahead and added a 0.3 to the growth rate, accounted for that. That provides an accurate and reliable traffic study. The previous study also did not consider slopes, side distance, and turns into the side. That was not analyzed. The current application analyzed all of that, as I will explain down the line. The previous study did not include the realignment of College Road. The current application in front of you, the previous application did not include realignment of College Road. The current application in front of you includes the realignment of College Road within the city limits. The impact of that is that it incentivizes Highway 305 expansion. The distance separating the pumps and the tank, the gas pump and the tank, to the nearest residential property line in the previous application was 117 feet. In the current application, it is 212 feet. The Planning Commission actually asked that it be increased to 215 feet for the gas tanks. That increased the healthiness for surrounding residential properties. In terms of signage, the current project text does not limit the applicant to a monument sign. As I did show, this development, the current submission, is being changed to an 8-foot high monument sign to blend into the character of the neighborhood. In terms of analysis, the first criteria in the zoning ordinance is that the application should be consistent with the minimum development standards in the C4 zoning district. This application, as staff has reviewed it, meets and exceeds those minimum development standards. From two main perspectives. First, there is a provision in the project text that this application will be required to meet every and any other provision or requirement of the City of Olive Branch Design Review Ordinance. So even if you don't have something spelled out in the project text, the city's Design Review Ordinance will apply. In the project text for the county, there is no applicability of the city's Design Review Ordinance. And our city Design Review Ordinance is very demanding, far more restrictive. Secondly, the project text from the county is very lax in terms of issues of landscaping, buffering, lighting. Under the city's Design Review Ordinance, light from any property, commercial property, cannot spill into an adjoining residential property. The applicant will have to submit a photometric plan which shows that light at property line, light intensity at the property line will be 0. So all those requirements stipulated in the city's design review ordinance and the C4 provisions in the city's zoning ordinance are met and exceeded. The second criteria is that the request should be made by the property owner. The application in front of you has been made by the property owner, so that criterion has been met. In terms of traffic safety, which I know is a big animal in the room, the first element that we considered, the city engineer, in reviewing the project text, and one of the reasons why the Planning Commission sent the applicant back to the drawing board, was to look at the level of service. The key thing about roads is every road has a level of service. Basically, how it functions, to what extent can it function without being terribly, failing in terms of congestion. That is really what level of service is. Engineers grade this from level A to level F. F is total fail. A is best and best. C is generally where you have most streets. They're okay. Most streets are at the level C. When you start getting to E, that is bad. Where that is poor, F has totally failed. So the traffic study as it was conducted and then turned over to MDOT. MDOT reviewed it, validated it. The city engineer also reviewed it, validated it as being properly done, indicates that for eastbound traffic, at the intersection of Highway 305 and College Road, that functions at the level C. That is the standard for most streets, most commercial roads. That's what it is. It currently functions at a level C. After construction, if this development was constructed, it will remain at the level C. It will not change for the eastbound traffic on College and 305, going towards Green Farms, Dorking Farms. No, going towards Emory Lake, and to the right. If you're heading north, that will be to the right. The westbound traffic going towards Dorking Farms, Green Farms, that is currently functioning at the level C. If this development was approved and constructed without any mitigating circumstances, without any improvements, that will it will go from a C to a D. The applicant, if you look in the middle where it says westbound, before construction, that is currently a C. It will go from a C to what you have at the bottom, that would be a D. The applicant has proposed other improvements that will take it back from a D to a C, and I'm going to touch on that. The northbound traffic is currently functioning as CB, where you have NB. That is the northbound traffic. Is currently functioning at level CB. Post-construction, it will remain CB, so no negative impact. Southbound traffic functioning at BC. Post-construction, it will remain BC. So in terms of level of service, there is really no negative impact. What is this level C that we're really talking about? What is this level C? These are pictures taken on that side today with the timestamps as you see on them. 6:57 a.m. in the morning. This is 6:57 a.m. this morning. That is how that intersection functions. That is the traffic you get there. 6:58 at the bottom. This is 7 a.m. in the morning. This at the bottom, this is 7 a.m. facing north, heading into City Hall. At the bottom, that is 7 a.m. heading south towards the interstate. That is the traffic which you have. Within a minute after that, the picture to your right at the top, that is 701. That is the intersection, how it looks like. At the bottom, that is 701 facing south. To your right, that is 708, 708. This is 708 heading to City Hall. So you are facing you are heading north. The picture at the bottom, the picture at the bottom, that is facing east. Those are the number of cars you have. At the south, the very picture at the south, that is facing west. Eastward, that is still facing east within a minute after that. 7-Eleven, this is facing west. So this is going towards Dawkins Farms, Gwyn Farms. That is a picture. 7:30, 30 minutes after that, traffic begins to increase because you're getting towards peak hour. Traffic begins to increase. This is 7:30 at that intersection. Those are the number of cars that you have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. One heading south. 7:30 facing south on going towards the interstate. That is a picture at the bottom. That's how it looks like. This afternoon at 4:45, getting towards the peak hour in the afternoon, that is a picture to your right at the bottom. I counted the total number of cars that you had there. There were 19 cars, right up to where you will have the driveway going into Old River Farm and Highland Lake. That is how it looks like. Once the peak hour passes, in the middle, from about 8 o'clock to the peak hour again, 4:30, 5 o'clock and beyond. This is basically how that road looks like. This is 11:25. This is 11:30. This is 11:40 in all directions. So at 11:40, this is heading north towards City Hall. There are cars. This is in the east direction, facing east. To your right, you have 2 cars. At the bottom, that is facing south. You have 3 cars. And heading westward, that is the picture to the left. 5 minutes after that, 11:45. Took this at 5 minutes interval. 11:45, that's how the intersection looks like in all directions. At 12 o'clock, top of the hour, that's how the intersection looks like in all directions. The second element that, in terms of traffic, which the applicant was required to include or to study, is a change in grade. What a change in grade does is it affects side distance. If a piece of property is at a low spot, like you have on that particular side, which is right here at the dip, this will be the location of the driveway right there in the middle. At that particular location, to the east, to the west, that is College Road 305 intersection. And if you continue up the hill, to your right, that is the top of the slope. And the applicant hired a surveyor, went out there, shot the grade changes, made the grade measurements to be able to see safely in all directions. From College Road towards the driveway, you need to have a minimum of 520 feet for it to be safe. The current design is 585 feet. From the driveway, that is the same location where Dollar General is currently located. The driveway will basically be opposite the Dollar General driveway, will be at the same location. You need to have the same 520 feet based on the changes in grade. These will provide the current application, there will be 1,200 feet. So it meets site distance measurement based on changes in grade. All of this was provided to MDOT, reviewed by MDOT. It met site grades, site distance changes, requirements under state provisions. In terms of accidents, first, I did mention the addition of a turn lane into this site, which the applicant will be doing. When Dollar General was approved, and they went out and constructed at this particular site. The state required Dollar General to add a deceleration lane and also a middle turn lane. So these are pictures of the site today. What the middle turn lane does is it allows cars to pull into the middle turn lane, wait for other cars that are heading southward to clear, pass, and then they can make the left turn into the site. With the addition of this middle turn lane, I asked our police department before the planning commission meeting to determine whether there have been any accidents. The report I got from our police department was that there had been none. Adamant Dickerson did call my attention, which I want to thank you for that, sir. That was important because that road, as I did show on the very first slide, is actually outside of the city limits. So response on that road will be by the sheriff's office in the county. Planning commission meeting was on Tuesday, on the 8th. I went to the county's office on Friday, sheriff's office, and I asked for a report whether there had been any accidents at that intersection since these improvements were made from College to Mitchell's Way, which is the block where you have this particular piece of property. There had been none. There had been none. There had been one accident or incident that occurred at the Dollar General parking lot. What happened was a tow truck pulled in there to pick up a car, and somebody backed out of the parking space and hit the side. I was provided with the accident report, and I forwarded that report to the mayor. So they had been known. After I sent the staff report to you for this particular meeting, I wanted to make sure that between then and now, we've not had other incidents. So this afternoon at 3 o'clock, I was in the sheriff's office in the county. I was provided data by Captain Jonathan Poe. He indicated that there had been 2 accidents on 305, but not here. On September 10, there was an incident at the intersection of Bethel Road and Highway 305, 2 miles from this location. On the 14th, there was also another incident to the south, not within the block where you have this particular piece of property. The applicant, as I did mention, proposes the realignment of College Road. College Road, as you have today, has this, permit me use the word hunchback, and it creates a safety problem. Part of the city's effort to have that expansion of Highway 305 is the hope that this hunchback will be taken away. This issue will be resolved because it kind of dips down. It goes down into Highway 305, and it's not really safe. So any steps that can be taken to eliminate this hunchback is a step in the right direction. When Mitchell's Corner, the residential section, was approved back in the day, early 2000 or so, the county did require that the developer dedicate this particular area from here heading westward for the future extension of the road. But interestingly and strangely, when they approved the project text for this particular development back in 2005, all they required in the development of this piece of property was that the applicant will improve to the center line of the road. So if you were to hold this applicant to that standard today on any development that he proposes, he will basically build half of the road to the middle of this area that will go nowhere, neither connects to Church Road, to College Road, nor to Highway 305. It will simply be an improved piece of asphalt in the bush, so to speak. To resolve the issue of the increase in traffic, I did mention that for the westbound traffic, you had an increase from level C to level D. That happened because customers coming into the site, into this site, would have had to get on College Road 305, so if they were heading westward, if they were heading to the east, they will come to this intersection, go down on Highway 305, and then enter into the site. What the applicant has done in this current proposal, and then, of course, when they're going back, you have to go back that same way, get back to that intersection, and then make a left. What the applicant has essentially done in this application is eliminated that. If anyone was coming into this particular site from the west, so from Dorkin Farms, Gwyn Farms, you will come in through the new College Road alignment, enter the site, and then get out, go back into the subdivision without ever getting to that intersection. So that is what this design essentially does. It totally eliminates the need for any traffic, that has to do with this site to get to that particular intersection. He could have achieved that simply by proposing it as a driveway, which is what he did in the first application. But the city engineer and I looked and we said, we need to build value for the city in this project, essentially. And we were able to push the applicant to build this as a full street. If this application were approved, that road, as realigned, will be constructed right up to the property line on Highway 305. The applicant has designed it, showing, as you have at the bottom here, the way it will extend across. Submitted all these plans to MDOT to make sure that the grades will work. MDOT reviewed that, approved, and issued a permit for it. So the road will have curb and gutter on both sides. It will have curb and gutter on both sides. It will be 3 lanes, so you have 2 through lanes and a middle turn lane. The current College Road really doesn't even have that. It would have a bike lanes on both sides. So this will be a full collector street, really the way you want roads of this nature to be built. You will have 5 feet wide sidewalks on both sides. You will have a grass strip in between, curb, gutter, sidewalks, 2 bike lanes on both sides, and 3 lanes, 2 being through lanes, and a middle turn lane. The next criteria requires the board to find that there are utilities within the vicinity of this site which will be suitable for commercial development as proposed. Surrounding this property, there are water lines. Even Dollar General has the water line from the city. There are all city utilities in this area. You have sewer shown there in green. You have water line in blue. You have gas lines shown there in that golden color. So utilities are fully available. That particular criteria, therefore, is met. The application is also required to conform with the comprehensive plan, which is the reason the Planning Commission had denied it in 2022. So the map to your left, that shows the comprehensive plan as it were in 2022. If you see the property there is designated in yellow. So that is suburban residential. In December, when the Board of Aldermen updated the comprehensive plan, that was changed from suburban residential to commercial as shown in the image to your right. That was to respect the zoning of the property as it was inherited from the county, namely commercial. And there is a provision, a policy provision in our comprehensive plan recognizes that neighborhood commercial properties of this sort have or can be permitted for convenience stores with gas pumps. That is stated in our comprehensive plan. In terms of impact on surrounding, this will focus so much on some of the comments that were raised by the neighbors that kind of forced us to do this extensive review to make sure that we're covering everything. In terms of lights, I had mentioned that if this application were approved, there will be no lights spilling from this property into any adjoining property because of the design review ordinance requirements of the city. And it's also been included in the project text. Lights at property lines will be 0, luminous intensity. Secondly, and to achieve that, from the design of the building, we took away any of the lights on the canopies. If you look at the way it is designed, all the lights have to face down. It's basically like the roof of a house. So you don't have any lights by the side shining into the neighborhood. In terms of buffer, this is Tigmicher's Grove with the 2 houses looking into the site from the residential neighborhood, the picture at the top. It has those trees That picture was taken today. It has those trees. Those trees will remain in place. Those trees actually extend to about 40. I walked to that bush area and did a measurement from the fence that is on the property line of one of the residential property. The trees extend to about 43 feet. The county only required a natural buffer of 30 feet, which means the applicant could go in and cut down some of those trees. If he stuck to what was required by the county, he can actually reduce that buffer. If this application was approved, that buffer will stay in place. The picture at the bottom shows the site looking south on Highway 305. So all this dark area will basically, from here going into the residential neighborhood, will stay in place. It will not be touched. There is a ditch right here. The site design does not extend to that ditch. All of that is kept basically left as it is, as open space. That will not be affected. Multiple times it's been said that it was a creek. It was a creek. I pulled the maps, the city maps. It didn't show that it was a creek, not even a blue line creek. I went on that side. I took pictures of it. It's a wet weather conveyance channel. Basically, when the rain falls, then it carries water. There is not a creek permanently running through that area. Another element I did mention is the composite fence with brick columns that will be added on all the sides and at the back of the property adjoining residential development. Planning Commission did recommend that that be increased from 6 feet to 8 feet. Under the current provisions from the city, there is no requirement for a composite fence, 8 feet high composite fence. In terms of fire, there was a concern that if gas pumps were allowed on this property, there will be fire. The only way we can resolve that is to look at whether gas pumps have been causing fire all over the city. I went to the fire chief and I asked him to pull his records for the past 3 years and show us whether there have been fire incidences at gas stations, whether any of those was caused by fuel pumps. He looked at the data, sent the data to me. Till today, no fire at the gas stations that we have in the city has resulted from fuel pumps for the past 3 years that he could pull the data from. They had been known. In terms of health, there is always this concern that if you permit a gas station or fuel pumps, so to speak, in a residential area, the BTX complex is a compound made up of benzene, toluene, ethyl benzene, and xylene, will cause cancer, will poison everybody around there, cause cancer, and everybody will die. That is a common statement. However, there is a safe distance. If there was no safe distance from a gas station, then with all the gas stations we have in the city, everybody would have cancer. The only way we don't have that is because there is a safe distance from gas stations. In areas where it's flat and you have high winds, that places like California has been measured to be about 400 feet. In the south areas like ours, we looked at a number of, there is a way to determine it. Often, if there is a safe distance provided in the city zoning ordinance, then we will enforce that. In our case, there is no distance requirement in our zoning ordinance. For that reason, we couldn't just choose an arbitrary number and enforce. The next approach to resolve that is to look at what the city has historically approved in terms of safe distance. To be fair, we have to look at the logic of appropriateness. What has the city historically approved? We look at the gas stations that adjoin residential neighborhoods in the city or that are next to residential properties. The closest is 81 feet. The furthest is 180 feet for an average of 126 feet. The applicant in the current design proposes 212 feet. So he exceeds that separation distance for any other gas station adjoining a residential development that has been proposed or that has been approved in the city. In terms of property values, this is statistical calculation. We did a calculation to determine whether gas stations adjoining residential developments in the city have had any effect on property values. The only way you know that is properties that are closer to a gas station will have a lower value than those that are further from it, everything being constant. We found no significant impact, even when we use a number of variables, lot size, things like other improvements like swimming pool or no swimming pools, factored all those variables, we found no significant impact. In terms of crime, the FBI publishes a report on various land uses and the crime rate that they generate across the country. Per that report, convenience store without gas pumps is at number 4 generator of crime. Convenience store with gas pumps, that with gas station, is at number 7. In other words, convenience store with gas pumps actually generate less crime compared to when you don't have gas pumps. And theoretically, there are 2 reasons for that. It's lights, and 2 is activity outside of the building. Just as in single-family residential neighborhood, when you have people sitting outside in neighborhood, there are eyes on the street, you have less crime. When you have no eyes on the street, the tendency for crimes to be high, to go up is higher. It's basically the same logic that applies here. The mayor wanted me to look specifically at Olive Branch, which is the right thing to do, because some of these numbers take very urban areas, and don't consider your local reality. So I had to look at our local reality, and I asked our police department to look at the numbers for the past 5 years, 2019 to 2023. Reported incidences. I have all the statistics here, all the reports that they sent to me. I have all of them here. Convenience store with gas pumps in the city report an average of 1.29 incidences per year per store. Convenience store without gas pumps, you can hardly find any these days. There were only 2 that came close to being a convenience store without gas pumps. One out here on, actually you find them kind of like within strip malls. Out here on Goodman Road, on Old Goodman Road, there is one out there. The number of incidents was 1.40 incidences per year per store, which is higher. We looked at retail. The mayor also asked that I look at retail, because retail is currently permitted on this property as a use by right. Averagely in the city, excluding the outliers like Walmart, you have 3.05 incidences per year. If you add Walmart, it goes to about 17 incidences per year. That's an outlier. I kept Walmart out. So the lowest among all of them in terms of crime, following our local reality, is actually a convenience store with gas pumps. The next section of our presentation looks at what is currently required, or the current provisions from the county, and what the applicant proposes. In other words, if this application were denied, what will you have out there? If it were approved, what will you have? And if you were denied and the applicant decided to go with the formula which he had, which was subdividing the property as it was permitted by the county and entitled in the project text as the development regulations of that particular piece of property, if he went with that, the aggregate traffic at that particular intersection will be 6,209 average daily traffic aggregate for those 2 uses. If it went with the current application, it will be 2,443 average daily traffic. So the choice before the city is really whether at an intersection that we are concerned about traffic, we want to allow it for potential development in a way that the traffic volume will be almost 3 times what the applicant is currently proposing, or approve what he is proposing, which will generate less traffic volume. In terms of the number of driveways, left turns, that's usually where you have collisions. Because as people come out of driveway and they make a left turn, as in this case, if you look at the diagram you have at the bottom, the county, that project text, and it's even written in the project text that the site will be permitted to have 2 driveways. I looked at M.Dot manual. M.Dot manual in this particular case, based on the number of the traffic volume and the amount of street frontage that this site has, will qualify for 2 driveways. Under this plan, you have 2 driveways, so you have 2 left turns. If we go with the current application, if the board were to approve the current application, you have 1 driveway. So you eliminate a traffic left turn safety risk. Basically drops, you have that risk. If the application were denied, there is no requirement for the college road realignment. If you were approved, there would be a college road realignment. In terms of crime, I already indicated, spoke on this. What's going on? Okay. In terms of buffer, the current application is a 30 feet wide natural buffer with 50 feet building setback. If these were approved following the recommendation from the Planning Commission, you have a 30 feet wide. I put a plus there because the Board of Aldermen has the discretion whether you want to require an increase in that buffer width. You have that discretion. That's why I put a plus there. And the building will be set back 60 feet. The buffer will also be fortified with evergreens. What that does is during winter, when the natural trees you have out there shed their leaves, the evergreen will provide continuous buffering. You also have an 8 feet high composite fence with the brick columns. If these were denied and you had the 2 buildings, the 2 lots subdivided, developed as the applicant had proposed at one point, basically you have a dumpster adjoining within 30 feet of a single-family residential home. Under the current dispensation, under the current application in front of you, the closest you can have the dumpster will be 200 feet. The current list of uses in the project text allows for vape shops, tobacco sales. Those are all retail elements. And tobacco shops units are in planning, they call them LULUs, locally undesired land uses. They reduce property values. They are like landfills. Under the current application, those have been prohibited in the project text. So you will not have a vape shop there. You will not have any kind of tobacco sale on that piece of property if these were approved. In terms of signage, the current text allows for higher signs, various designs. If these were approved, the design of the sign that you will have will be an 8 feet high monument sign as shown on the right of your screen. So that's the difference of what you will have at that intersection. Of course, the pictures to the left, that is just prototype. It's not exactly what you're going to have there. That's just for example's sake. In terms of building design, when you follow architecturally what is allowed in the code, the applicant could create this blighted situation on your left of your screen. If these were approved, what you will have will be this design. When the project text is approved with the development plans, one of the things we did in this application is we did not allow the applicant to just pick up pictures from the internet and include in the preliminary development plan, as you sometimes have in some project texts. We forced the applicant to actually design it, get down to the details, do the engineering work, such that when the board, if the board were to approve this, the board knows what it will actually look like. The Planning Commission at its meeting on August 8th, unanimously, by a vote of 6-0, unanimously recommended approval of the application to amend the project text for Mitchell's Corner Plan Development Area 1, essentially to permit gas pumps as accessory use to the already allowed convenience store, and to adopt the associated 305 and College Neighborhood Convenience Market project text and development plan so that it becomes binding and as such enforceable, subject to these conditions 1 to 6, that the building setback be increased from 50 feet to 60 feet from any residential property line. All building facades facing College Road and Highway 305 be researched every 40 feet in conformity with the general character of houses in the area. This is not a current requirement in the project text from the county. That the buffer fence height be increased from 6 feet to 8 feet. That a convenience store building size be reduced from 6,000, not 600, sorry for that, there is a zero missing, from 6,000 square feet to 4,500 square feet. I did approach the planning commissioner who made that motion, and I asked him why he asked for that reduction in the building size. And he said it was because he didn't want them to have a separate unit where they could sell vape. So really, vape is already outlawed as a use in the project text. So it really has no, even if you left it at 6,000 square feet, it would have no effect because vape is already outlawed. No digital signage for gas prices, and the vent pipes must be at least 215 feet from the nearest residential property line. So the Planning Commission did listen to open the public hearing, took notice of everything that was said. They did not just rubber stamp this, they imposed all these additional conditions on the application and recommended it to you for approval. Upon a number of findings, which I don't think is necessary for me to go into them, the first being that the application is consistent with the minimum development standards in the C4, it's been recommended, it's been requested by the property owner, it aligns with the comprehensive plan, the convenience store is already permitted on the property, and other potential uses such as restaurants and general retail are actually more intensive in terms of impact than what this applicant is proposing. The traffic study has been reviewed by the city engineer and found to meet appropriate standards. MDOT has reviewed the traffic study, approved it, issued a permit for it already. There will be no negative impact in terms of level of service. All of that has been validated. The developer will bear full responsibility in the construction of the new College Road realignment, which is estimated to about 1.2 million. If you were to build that road, by the time it ends, it will be more than that, just the amount of grading on that side. That would otherwise not be constructed, and this road will be of benefit to the general public and will incentivize and foster the eventual expansion of Highway 305 that is a priority to the city. Additional buffers, including a composite fence, would be provided. The distance from the gas pumps increased. The site layout and building design blends and renders the proposed development compatible with the neighborhood. The data on crime, fire incidents, property values show that there will be no negative impact with respect to these elements. The approval of the proposed development will subject this property to greater and better design and development requirements regarding building architecture, street improvements and traffic circulation, the freestanding signs, the development intensity reduction, buffer contents, lighting restrictions, which will enhance the quality of the neighborhood and will not otherwise be provided. These are the reasons for which the Planning Commission recommended approval. Thank you. That concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Asong. Does the board have any questions regarding the staff report?
Yes, Mayor, I had two quick questions for clarification. Mr. Song, I believe you said the Planning Commission recommended 4,500 square feet rather than 6. Is that correct?
Rather than 6,000, yes, sir.
Okay. And number two, we're dealing with an 8-foot high composite fence, not 6 foot. Is that also correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank
The
you.
applicant had proposed 6 foot in the project text. The Planning Commission recommended that it be increased from 6 to 8.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome, sir.
Mr. Wallace?
2 or 3 questions. Pull it on up. If it remains the way it is, say it's not approved, what happens with the commercial lots? Do they stay 2 commercial lots, or does it stay 1?
It will stay 2 commercial lots.
And open to whatever business is inside the C4 highway commercial?
Will be built on both lots. So you can have a retail on one lot and you can have a restaurant on the other lot.
All right. What about, what did the supervisor's minutes say the reason they denied pumps? Does the minutes say why?
I'm sorry, sir, I didn't.
Why did the supervisors omit pumps when they approved it? Does it say?
I went through the minutes. It really didn't say why. I went through the minutes. It really didn't. The minutes read something like, would you, let let me pull out the witness. I hope I have them. I don't have the full.
While he looks that
I
up,
don't-
I got a
don't have-
question.
I don't have it with me. But I think at that time, and Steve Bigelow did explain this. At that time, one of the things was, back then, it would seem there was no stoplight at the intersection of College and 305. Back
Mhm.
then.
Yeah, but there's a gas stations, but I don't know why they would omit it over a stoplight. But, man, it's about loud as it gets. Sorry.
So they just had a discussion back and forth, and they asked the applicant whether he would be okay with removing gas pumps as a permitted use at the time, and the applicant said yes. There was really no in the
The minutes didn't say.
the minutes don't go into the reason.
Okay. I got another question for Andy. Andy, when we did the traffic diet study over, isn't that what it's called, a traffic diet?
Yes, sir.
Over near Walmart and Chick-fil-A.
Right.
Do those studies also show differences in traffic like this is attempting to do?
Did they show?
Can they show differences in traffic as this is attempting to do?
If,
Let's
Well,
say we use that group to
Yeah.
do a traffic study near the intersection of College and 305.
yeah,
What, in your opinion, would be a difference in the way they would approach it? Since I think they called it a traffic diet, but do you know if they would
Well,
approach it differently?
when you do a traffic study, you're going to be looking for certain aspects to be analyzed, and you kind of lay out a scope when they're doing that study to see what the impacts would be. So you usually have the current conditions, and then you put in whatever it is that you're trying to do for the future. So that was kind of done differently, because that was saying, okay, what is it gonna look like when we have full development? What's it gonna look like when that 4-lane goes to 3-lane? And then you look at current, and you look at proposed conditions, and then you see what the impact would be. So in this case, it was basically, let's see what the current conditions are at the intersection of College and 305. Let's put in this C-store with the gas pumps, and let's see what kind of impact it has, and you reanalyze it again. They had several different things that we asked them to look at. One was the addition of the right turn decel lane coming into it. Make sure that we took into account the turn lane that's been added on 305. The impacts, I guess, of the lane addition, of the new drive coming into College, and how all that would work. So it's just different depending on what you're looking for on the proposed outcome of what's being developed.
Did we do an accident study on the opposite side of College Road and 305, on the other side of the intersection?
Opposite side. Not sure where that
On the north
opposite
side.
side.
Did your accident study and looking at the incident reports pertain to the entire intersection or just the west side? Or did it take in the entire intersection?
It took the entire intersection. From the
From
intersection
north,
of-
south, east, west?
Yes, and both sides, the west side is in the in the city, and the east side is in the county. That's why I had to go to both police departments to get the data.
So the traffic study that they did starts out with them doing traffic counts. And the report was turned in April of '23, so not too long ago. I think that I don't know whether you're asking if the Dollar General was incorporated into it and the effects of that, but it should have been at that time.
Dollar General was constructed in October last year, so in April, Dollar General was already open and functioning.
One last question, maybe more for the mayor. When we changed the ordinance recently to allow gas stations at only particular intersections. Was it two opposite across the way intersection and not on the same side of the intersection?
It's really not necessarily on the same side. Alderman Wallace, the ordinance states that the convenience store gas station would have to be at a signalized intersection and no more than two total out of all four corners. But as Song mentioned, the board passed that on December the 15th, and this application was in process on November the 4th. Even when that meeting was held, we were not aware that it was in the process at the time. It was already in the pipeline, so to speak. But two out of four corners could have convenience stores or gas stations, but it would have to be a signalized intersection.
And Mayor, and Song, correct me if I'm wrong, but that is for straight conventional zones. If you have a planned district like C4, the Board of Aldermen has the authority to have departures from that limit of two based on what the board approves in a project text.
Yes, sir.
Or to approve a gas station at a non-signalized location if that's part of a planned district, C4 or PUD or something of that nature.
Yes, sir.
My only question, Art, this was approved in the county in 2005?
Yes,
Is that when
sir.
they rezoned it?
That's when the rezoning from agricultural residential to
Okay.
C4.
Was the subdivision behind it already rezoned? Or was
No.
that added afterwards?
No, it was not subdivided yet, but in the preliminary development plan, it was set up to be subdivided, as I showed you with those two lots.
Okay.
And in the project text, the language in the project text specified that Area 1 and Area 2, so Area 1 is where this property currently sits. Let me see if I can get to it.
I just was wondering when the subdivision was developed and this was rezoned.
So
When
the
the
project
county,
text, the
when the-
project text says Area 1, if you look at the picture you have at the bottom of your screen, so that's Area 1, and Area 2 shall each be permitted to be subdivided into two lots. Accessibility to each lot is as shown in the attached plan. So that's why I think the county allowed Dollar General, the piece to the right where you have Dollar General has now been subdivided into two lots.
At the original rezoning, the county had one public hearing for the residential and the commercial portion and rezoned, many acres to residential, which now constitutes the residential subdivisions.
Okay.
And then rezoned the corner at C4 at 8 acres. So it was one hearing, one motion, one
And
vote
They did it all at the same
to
time.
rezone a large piece of property, part of it residential, part of it commercial.
So it's been commercial the whole
Correct.
time subdivision.
The whole time that the
Started.
property's been zoned for the subdivision, the corner's been zoned for commercial. Now, they
Okay.
may have been subdivided in later years and in phases, but you would have had the original zoning taking
Yeah.
place at the same time.
But,
Okay.
Mr. Dye, back to Mr. Wallace's question, there's nothing in the county files to show why that they would allow gas pumps on the, I guess that'd be the east side of 305 at Cedarview, but not allow gas pumps on the right side or the west side going down 305, nothing
Are you talking about
indicates.
further south? on
Further
305? No, sir, nothing in the motion that was made by the supervisor nor in the vote.
Gotcha.
There may have been other public comments about the pros and cons of gas stations. I was not there for the original public hearing, but the motion by the Board of Supervisors did not give a rationale for excluding gas pumps on that corner.
Gotcha. Was that part of your question, Mr. Wallace?
Yeah. And again, it's been approved for commercial with these two buildings on there, or we can, the whole thing's over the gas pumps. I doubt anybody would do it, but what about charging stations? I know, I don't have an electric car or anything, but
In the
are they
current,
allowed?
in the current application, that's an interesting question in the sense that the project text says only outlaws fuel pumps. So fuel
Okay.
pumps are not the same as charging stations for electric cars. They are not the same thing. So if somebody were to go there and build and put charging stations, you could have, it would be allowed. I don't see, because they are not the same thing. You know, the project, what the county said was, and I can understand at that time in 2005, electric cars was not so much a thing being talked about. The current application in front of you contemplates having provisions for that if in future that becomes something that is in demand. It's been built into the design.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Does the board have any additional questions regarding the staff report? Any
Ju-
questions on the staff
Just-
report?
Just one more. Sorry, my voice don't carry very well unless I get right on it. A song went, so let's say it's not approved with gas pumps. So then they can turn around and put, it's already approved for like a tobacco store, so, or what did you call it, a what shop? A vape shop.
Vape shops, tobacco shops, restaurants, retail, anything that you can retail out there, you can go retail on that property. The project text just says, retail shop sales and services. Anything you can retail out there, you can retail on those, and restaurants, you can have restaurant out there, you can have, on two separate properties. So you can have a restaurant on, if you look at your area 1, you can have a restaurant on 2, and your convenience store without gas pumps, with tobacco and vape shops, and all of that on lot 1. You can
And
have
we,
them.
we won't have a say-so.
You won't be able to stop it, no.
Or-
based on zoning before it was brought into the city of Olive
Yes, sir.
And one other thing, the traffic from Highway Commissioner, there's no movement on, it's still, he's saying 10 to 15 years, is that still before they'll address the traffic?
We just don't have a definite time frame. We're meeting with legislators tomorrow about 305 again, but the board knows before I was here, y'all been asking about help for Highway 305 for a number of years, and we don't have a definitive date of when it would be widened.
Maybe we can ask the board of directors during the meeting if they can
Yes, sir.
get in contact with certain.
The executive director of MDOT and several key legislators will be up tomorrow to ride Highway 305 and to ride Craft Road at 78, where it goes from 5 lanes down to a 2-lane bridge. That's going to be a bus tour tomorrow with those decision makers, but there's no definitive date on when there's a commitment to make those improvements.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Questions?
Mayor, one point. Mr. Song, is it your request that your written report be made part of the record?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Regarding the staff report, does the applicant or the applicant's representative have any additional details to be shared for the board?
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, my name is Billy Myers. I'm with Myers Law Group, PLLC, 265 North Lamar, Oxford, Mississippi, 38655. I'm here on behalf of the owner of this property, 305 College, Inc., whose principals are Yasser Sala and Sam Deek, who lives in Olive Branch, Mississippi. In addition, we have Byron Houston, who is the engineer for the project, to give you more specific detail. I don't know how we could give you much more detail than the staff report that you got here, and I've not, in my many years of law practice, seen a more glowing report for recommendation for approval from a planning commission than this one. My comments are just please focus on the fact that this application simply seeks the addition of gas pumps to a convenience store that is already legally permissible at this site. It was denied once before, as you know. What you see in this application is that the owner listened to the recommendations of the Planning Commission. The owner listened to the objections of the neighborhood and addressed those in this current application that's before you in order to justify the need for the gas pumps at this convenience store location. Introduce Byron Houston of Houston Engineering.
Thank you, Mr. Myers.
Byron Houston, Houston Engineering, P.O. Box 3087, Oxford, Mississippi, 38655. And this is Shane King, one of my assistant engineers. He's playing a video for the audience, and I don't know if you guys can see it, but it basically shows a rendering of kind of what the development would look like. And I'd like to reiterate that this is a project text revision just for fuel pumps. By right, the owner can do several different types of developments, as the song has went over. And I would just like to add a few items, or just kind of hammer at a few items that the thing with the fuel pumps and everything, you're not creating additional traffic. You're mostly picking the traffic off the road that's already there. Trip generation shows so many trips, but most of that, up to 85–90% of that, is going to be trips that are not really originated just because of that store. And one other item I did want to talk about, he was talking about the level of service on the existing College Road. And, you know, when it goes to a D, it actually is really, really close to a D. I mean, just one or two more vehicles during peak hour, and it would have been a D to start with. So it's borderline there anyway. And future improvements will really alleviate all of this area. I know there's more development on the way in this area, and my client has listened to the city, listened to the residents, and has advised me to make whatever changes are necessary to make this agreeable, both with the community and with the mayor and board of aldermen. And he's gone overboard. We've increased the buffers. We've ensured that all the large trees and all the vegetation in that buffer zone would not be taken out. All of that stuff will be supplemented with more small type vegetation and some evergreen type stuff that will just totally block out, you know, the view of that development to the residents from behind. Also, the pumps, the closest pump is at least 215 feet from the west property line, which is the nearest residence. The vent location, my calculations, is around 300 feet, maybe 300 feet plus from the residential area. The vent will be out in the front in the island, and it will be surrounded with landscaping and stuff like that. You won't be able to see it. Also, the vent will be at least 400 feet from the nearest home. And also, all MDEQ concerns regarding the fuel pumps, the underground storage tanks, will be met. You know, MDEQ has upped their requirements, and there's a lot going into these underground storage tanks and the fuel handling mechanisms and stuff like that. A lot of safety has been added on, a lot of oversight by MDEQ. Now there's 30-day testing and annual testing of different component systems that protect the public from fires, fumes, and different things of that magnitude, and leakage of fuel to the into the ground to where it would go to the groundwater. The USTs and all the equipment has to be installed by a certified installer with inspection through MDEQ, and the owner is required to do some monitoring, but there are basically inspections every 3 days and annual testing of different items that are part of this. Any exhaust due to venting, it's set up to where the exhausts that are vented out of vent pipes, and you've probably seen the little fumes coming off of gas when you put it in your car or fill your lawnmower up or whatever. Those type of things evaporate fairly quickly into the atmosphere. If we had an issue, with with vapors and different things of that magnitude, MDQ and the U.S. Department of Environmental Quality would have already addressed those matters, and right now we're following, all regulations. All of the city regulations will be followed for this development. We've gone, the owner has gone overboard. We've given a residential type of structure for the development, which, with some of these other developments we wouldn't have to do. We could go out there and put a regular standard commercial type building. This right here is going to have a residential feel. It'll be a whole lot nicer, and it should be a project that you can say, well, look, they did this over here. Would you like to do something like this? And I think it's going to look a lot better for the community, and that type of thing. And also, the owner has agreed to build a portion of the relocation of 305, approximately 800 feet, which is a significant investment. And he's going to, it's going to be planned and done proper. And we've already done some coordination with MDOT for like the centerline grades, profiles, and stuff like that. As this project goes on, we'll be meeting with Andy Swims, and we'll be meeting with MDOT to ensure that we have the proper grade to set that at, so that there's no additional cost whenever MDOT does go through with, the 305 widening project. And anyway, and also there's, there is water and sewer, electrical, all the utilities are in the area. And I think that's about got it covered for me. Y'all have any questions?
Hearing none, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
In conclusion, it's aesthetically pleasing, and as the staff report says, the applicant, the owner of this property, has met the conditions that are required by the ordinance of the City of Olive Branch. And we respectfully request that you accept the recommendation, the unanimous recommendation of the Planning Commission, and grant the addition of fuel pumps to this convenience store location. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me ask a quick question. Is it including, are you asking for, you keep saying fuel, is it diesel or is it gasoline, or is it both? Or is it, what is it?
Gas pumps.
Gas only, no diesel?
Any other questions from the board? Thank you, applicant. This time, public comments will begin for up to 3 minutes. At this time, I'm asking for people that are here to speak on behalf of or as a proponent for this development. You're here to ask this board to allow this development to occur. If you're here to speak on behalf of the development that you want it to occur, please come forward. And once you begin, after you complete your presentation, there's some blue cards on the very back on that counter. If you just complete that with the name and address and give that to the clerk to my right, your left, please.
All right.
3 minutes.
Hello. Good evening, Mayor and Alderman. To begin, I would like to thank and praise you for your leadership in moving the city to higher heights. I would just like to say that the developer has gone above and beyond to develop this store for the community, and the developer has, I'm really scared, I'm sorry.
Take your time.
Okay. They have helped the community a lot on every one of their stores. They have gave to schools, they have gave to the city, of every city they've had stores in. Their gas prices are cheaper. They are willing to, donate the $1.2 million for the road realignment. The developer is really good for the community. I am telling you this because I've worked for them for 12 years, and they have done great things in every community that they have got stores at. And they have been safe, and They make sure that all of their employees are safe and everyone around is safe. And they're gonna do their very best to make sure that their stores look good and everything stays clean and the crime rate is down, make sure nobody, gets hurt or anything like that. The traffic right there, they're gonna fix the road so there wouldn't be no traffic wrecks as much as possible. He does do what he says do. When he says he's gonna do something, he does it. He doesn't just talk about it. They actually do what they say they're gonna do. On every incident that they've had, they've always done this. I think that's about all I can say for now. They've always fed all the police officers.
Ma'am, before you leave, ma'am, would you just state your name and address, and everyone who comes forward, give us your name and address so we can have it for the record. Thank
Okay,
you.
My name is Angela Cobb, and it's 8544 Corona Street, Lot 126, Olive Branch.
Thank you. And next, if this is a proponent for this development, on behalf of it, come forward.
Kelly Hopper, 8091 Germantown Road, Olive Branch. I have done business with the ownership group, both of their private residences, their rental homes, their commercial properties. The one thing I like about doing business with them is they do keep their word. He's a fair businessman. He's an honest businessman. As far as their gas stations, when I have had to work late, being a single woman driving, I've always felt comfortable and safe stopping at one of their gas stations. They don't permit loitering. They do keep all of their stations and their commercial properties clean. They also own some medical buildings in Germantown. But they want to make sure that everything is neat and clean and fits the aesthetic of the neighborhood. And they do give back to the community. They get involved in every community they own property in and do things to make the community better. So, and I do own land close to where the station is, so yes, I do. I think it'll be good for the area.
Thank you. Still calling for proponents on behalf of this development, and please state your name and address for the record when you begin.
My name is Amber, and I live at 6824 Murray Drive in Olive Branch. I would like to address the issue of health, crime, and property values as they relate to the presence of the gas station in our area. Study shows that gas stations does not decrease value, it increases it. I forgot to pass these out. There is a Chevron gas station at 3490 Highway 305 south of the property that we are talking about today. I have marked in the location on red in the Here's the other one.
Continue, ma'am.
I have marked it in red on the plat that I gave you. Lots 2 and 4 I have marked in blue are exceptionally large and are not comparable with the others. They are $135,000 each. Now, if we look at lots 13 and 20, I've marked in yellow. Lot 13 backs up to the gas station is $130,000. Lot 20 is further away from the gas station, and it is $125,000. In other words, lot 20 is further away from the gas station and is cheaper than lot 13. What this tells us is that being close to a gas station does not reduce the value of the property, it only increases it. You hear from citizens against proposed developments and perceptions. They are not really reality as I've shown you. Gas stations do not cause all the problems you hear citizens claim they do. If they did, then the value of the properties closer to them would be less. But I showed you they are not less. In fact, they're even more in some cases. I pray that you will not make the decision today based on perceptions and fear, but on the knowledge and wisdom as I've presented to you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going. I'm going to ask the audience to withhold the clapping. I appreciate that. Having sat on the bench 25 years, I love a emotional plea, but what the board needs to hear are the facts instead of the clapping. So we could all, both sides could continue clapping all night long, but let's just hold it to the facts, kind of nothing but the facts, ma'am. So anyone else that's a proponent on behalf of this development, on behalf of it, come forward.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Aldermen. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I want to touch on the safety aspect of the service station. First, let me speak on the danger and misfortune if relative to traffic. Because issues, accidents arising from trucks slowing down, look at their city, you will see there's another gas station not too far from a funeral home. From here, being the same on Highway 305, contrary to the application for you, the gas station does not even have a destination lane that your trucks slow down and leave on the road into the site. As the volume of traffic there is far higher than the College Road and on 305 intersection. Yet there's no conclusion evidence. I'm sorry, and thank you for the opportunity to speak in a favor tonight. I'm sorry, my name is Vicki Burke. I live 8544 Croma, resident here 20 plus years in Olive Branch, Mississippi. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other person wants to speak on behalf of this applicant?
I'm Jennifer Headley. I live at 10210 Cockram Drive in Cockram. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Aldermen. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on what appears to be a simple application, but which so much has already been said. In the midst of so much noise, emotions are sometimes too present to the extent that they take away our reasoning. So I just want to wish to appeal to all of us to take a deep breath and have a moment of silence. I quickly want to touch on a few things. First and foremost, I ask you to trust your staff and planning commission. Everyone has looked at the details of this application, has recommended approval. The Mississippi Department of Transportation reviewed this application and determined it would be safe. That is why it approved and issued a driveway permit. Your city engineer reviewed and issued a memo that favors this development in all respects. Your planning staff did an extensive review of this application and recommended approval. The planning commission, made up of ordinary citizens just like us, not some special interest groups whom you appointed because you trust their judgment, they unanimously, I repeat, unanimously recommended approval. They did not just rubber stamp this. They looked at the details, the facts, and every single one of them determined that this is good for the city. Every neutral person that has looked at this, from the state to your staff to your planning commission, has determined that this will be safe and good for the city. I ask that you trust your staff and your planning commission and not just give us the impression that they do not really matter. By showing that you trust them and rely on their findings, they will work even harder to ensure that you are never misled and the city has the best of anything it can get. I'd also like to add, to run a city by creating winners and losers is not the best way to make public policies. Good policies are those that make everyone a winner in some way. This application is a win-win-win for everyone. What is in it for the city? The city gets at least 4 things. 1, a new at least $1.2 million road. 2, less traffic compared to some other already permitted uses.
Thank you, ma'am. That 3 minutes are up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on behalf of this applicant?
My name is Carrie Yarnell, and I live at 5588 Sycamore Drive, Cockrum. I travel Highway 305 every day and often through the intersection of 305 and College. I have 2 teenage drivers, one who is on a permit and one who has her own car. They also frequently pass through this intersection. Of course, there's a hill there. As you travel 305, you'll know there's lots of hills and curves along the road. One Stop gas station up Byhalia and 305 is on the north side of a much larger hill. RC's gas station is in the middle of a large curve with a higher speed limit and hidden neighboring driveways. And yet the most dangerous intersection on 305 is at Bethel, where there is no gas station. So to say that allowing approved convenience store to add fueling pumps would increase motor vehicle accidents and even to extreme of saying increase fatalities is pretty far-fetched. As a mother of teen drivers, I would not support something that would put my children in any danger. I only see good coming from the developer's plans. The position of the building will open up visibility. Adding turning lanes will add much needed additional width to both College and 305. The developer is contributing to the future plans of College, and this is how adding additional businesses to our area should be handled. It is good for our community and our taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jessica Leak. I live at 10068 Fox Chase Drive, Olive Branch, Mississippi 38654. As an Olive Branch taxpayer, I see nothing but a benefit for this project. The generous donation that the developer is giving towards the road repair will lessen the financial burden of our city that already has a tight budget. This is a very well-designed gas station, and I'm certain that it will become a trendsetter for future commercial developers of other types. Other Olive Branch residents have been addressing concerns and sharing nationwide statistics. I'd like to focus on this area specifically. Let's narrow down on the school boundaries for this area. Some parts are the city, some are the county. There's 6 gas stations within the Lewisburg district. Have those gas stations attracted any awful transient situations, any murders, any kidnappings? No, it has not. So statistically, our gas station is going to be a very good thing for our community. Alderman, this developer has gone above and beyond to get approval for not only for the city's planning commission and yourselves, but us residents. They have made adjustments to the plans, paid for traffic studies, consulted with state highway officials, some required, but some have just been to ease the minds of the residents. If I could vote, I would definitely say yes, and I hope yours will be too. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else on behalf of the application? Seeing none. Now I'm taking anyone that likes to speak in opposition, you're opposed to this application, come forward one at a time for your 3 minutes, and also please state your name and address for the clerk.
My name is John Norman. I live at 7970 Elizabeth in Payne Park, just right down the street from where they're proposing this. My biggest concern is crime, and I think we all have crime, should be one of our big concerns. The slide that was presented tonight, again, it was told that a convenience store without gas pumps have more crimes than convenience stores with gas pumps. If you've ever done risk analysis, you take that chart and you do a convenience store and you add the gas stations and you realize that you've increased your risk just by the statistics that were presented tonight. So I have, that really brought me a question, but I'm just going to read you some stuff. August 19th, Memphis Police Department is investigating a gas station shooting that left 1 man dead and another man injured on Saturday morning. Memphis Police responded to the shooting at 10 a.m. at the Z Market on South Perkins Road, just above the state line here. August 18th, rapper's brother shot and killed at BP gas station on South Parkway in Memphis. August 17th, Memphis shooting occurred at a Valero gas station on Airways Boulevard and Ball Road. August 13th, carjacking at a Valero station with 3 males, one with a 9mm in Memphis at 6 p.m. on Knight Arnold Road. July 27, this is in Michigan, but again, criminal attempts to hold up Marathon Gas convenience store, but customer with concealed carry shoots the perpetrator. On July 8th, now we're in Olive Branch. Around 10:20, officers respond to a scene of a robbery. We're not in Olive Branch yet, but at the Marathon gas station on Airways Boulevard. Man enters gas station armed with handgun and demanding money. January 18th, Murphy's Gas at Goodman and Davison, just up the road here, robbed by assailant with silver handgun. July 14, 22, Olive Branch. Attempted carjacking with shots fired at Shell Station at 3:05.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next person to speak in opposition, please come forward.
Good evening, Chastity Ross, 3860 Mitchell Grove Road East. I'm one of the main houses behind the gas station with the pool. Retired military, 20 years. I would like to start off by saying that they brief well. The presentation, it briefed well, but how long is it going to be before the upkeep of it? I have a swimming pool. My grandkids be in that swimming pool. How long will it be before my swimming pool is contaminated and possibility of me and my grandkids getting cancer? Our neighborhood, which is Mitchell's Corner West, is about 75% military, retired, previously serving, currently serving, or have served. We chose Olive Branch, Mississippi in that area specifically for the quietness and where we was located at. We had no idea we was being annexed to Olive Branch until after we closed on our houses. Our houses over there, I closed on my house at $500,000. I do not want the property of my value of my house to go down. I have served my country for 20 years, and I'm retired, trying to relax and enjoy life. I don't want a gas station there.
Thank you. Next person in opposition to the application.
Hello, my name is Petra Jones. I'm also bagged up to the proposed development 3878 Mitchell Grove Road East, Olive Branch, Mississippi. So I stand before you as two persons. I stand before you as the homeowner that doesn't want a gas station behind my home. I did, when I moved there, I was told by the county at the time that there was nothing that could be there, nothing proposed to be in the back where the trees are. So imagine my delight when I got a sign a year later saying that, hey, they want to put gas stations on this lot that was told that nothing could be there. So the other hat that I wear is a real estate professional. When I sell houses to potential buyers, even though your studies may show that a lot that's for sale that has not had a home put on it yet is priced higher near the gas station, but it doesn't matter until it sells. So those properties are still active and for sale. They have not sold. So until it sells, and for whatever it sells for, to determine the value or the effect of a gas station, we will not know. So on that note, I just say, yes, I think it will hurt my property value. As a real estate professional, I've been in this area since 2006. Yes, I do think it will have a negative impact on my home and my neighbor's home. We actually live here. We're not driving by it. We actually live here. We hear the accidents that no one has on record. Every morning, we can hear the traffic. We hear it all. So I don't know where the data is to say that they're not accidents. They're actually accidents. We hear them. So like I said, I don't want gas stations back there. I think it's a negative impact on my value, my neighbor's value, and everybody within a mile radius. If we decide to start moving around and decreasing property values, it hurts the area as a whole.
Thank you. Next person.
Hi, I'm Kathy Lambert, the homeowner at 8860 College Road. My husband and I got out of the Marine Corps, and my husband and I have made that home our final home. We've only been in that home 3 years, and now we have a gas station possibly going across the street from us. We don't want that either. I